All right, so going into game 4 of day 1 of week 6, we've got OpTic taking on Golden Guardians once again, 2 weeks in a row. Going into the draft, Golden Guardians bans out 3 mid laners in the Victor and Syndra, 2 comfort picks for PoE, as well as the Azir, another meta mid laner that's pretty much picked ban at this point. And on OpTic side, they take away Galio, Gangplank, and Zoe. And I've noticed that these are 3 of the red side bans.
Yeah,
So you pretty much have to ban it because these are all like first pick worthy laners. Golden Guardians goes for almost like a very similar comp that they went with against that win against Team Liquid last weekend. Taking the Skarner, the aggressive tank jungler, taking the Varus for Deftly. But an interesting note in this draft, they passed on the Orianna that they drafted last weekend in favor for the Rise. Another one of Power of Evil's signature champs that they let go over to him in favor of that Rise. Not sure how I felt about that one. But again, on OpTic's side, they picked up the Camille for Dokla making his NALCS debut, as well as the Sejuani for Acadian. What you got for the second half?
For the second half, Golden Guardians started by banning Arrow's champ pool. I thought they were kind of interesting attacks on the ADC, though. They went with Callista and Xayah. Callista is kind of an Arrow thing where you can be aggressive early in lane, but Xayah, he usually goes for other scaling ADCs like the Tristana, which is actually what he wound up picking up in this game. Trying to give Dokla a favorable matchup because he is the rookie. He's coming in for his first game. They banned out Sedge and Fiora on OpTic's side. Golden Guardians wound up taking the Braum as the support. It was just kind of a standard support at this point. Tanky gives everything he needs to the ADC, and then they gave Gnar to Lorlo, which is kind of a favorable matchup into Camille, but Camille does have some better split pushing abilities, which we'll kind of talk about once we get into the game. And then finally, OpTic rounds out their comp by picking Tahm Kench to keep that Tristana safe throughout the laning phase.
Elimination pretty much relegated to this Tahm Kench at this point. He's not really making too many flashy plays this split. Can't tell if that's like a decline for him, but he's just honestly, all you need to do is keep Arrow alive, and I think that anyone can really play this Tahm Kench at this level.
He's either playing Kench or Braum, one of the two, and it's good for him. It works. When you got Arrow, you don't really need to do anything special.
I like Golden Guardians comp only because it's just such a vanilla standard comp right now. Mm-hmm. Like you see Gnar, Braum, Skarner, Varus with like a flexible mid laner that can roam like an Azir, and that's just like so many of these games. It's just like the standard, and that you just compare whatever the opposing team has to their this standard comp.
But then I think OpTic really set themselves up for success. I would argue that Tristana scales harder than Varus, and Orianna, especially in the hands of somebody like Power of Evil, definitely is going to be more effective in the late game. This led for the only real weakness on OpTic's side being Dokla in Camille. And you want to talk about the early game where I guess Golden Guardians kind of exploited that?
Yeah, things were looking pretty good for Golden Guardians in the top lane. Lorlo built up a huge CS lead on Dokla. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't really able to translate very well because once Dokla hit that Trinity Force spike, it almost erases any kind of lead in that sense.
Yeah.
What I noticed a lot was that Lemon was camping mid super early, trying to get Power of Evil ahead on this signature pick of his. Mm-hmm. I would say in a mismatch to High, who we know a lot more for champions like the Orianna.
Yeah. I felt like we really saw this week, this game and the next, where OpTic has decided they're going to play through Power of Evil. That He's been their most consistent player. Even when Arrow is not looking so great, Power Evil is always shining. And so they gave him a lot of attention, but I feel like they also did a great job of mitigating the damage that Dokla could have created by just being a rookie.
But in general, Dokla still was able to play around his team pretty well. And you saw that once these laning phases ended, and OpTic ends up with a 22-minute Baron, and by the time 25 minutes rolls around, they've got a 5K gold lead.
Yeah.
That is, they just ran away with it at that point.
And I think OpTic's carries of PoE and Arrow have a lot to do with allowing Dokla to be the split pusher that he was in this game. That because with Kench and Sedge as the big tanks, but also just their ability to play safe and still effective, OpTic was able to make their 4-man +1 squad really shine here. That it's a clear style that OpTic can execute, at least against lower tier teams.
That's all I've really got on that one. By the time that second Baron, I think there was a second Baron that rolled around. High and Dokla were kind of 1v1ing for this Infernal Drake.
Right.
And they High
talked about this.
Yeah, he just ends up taking it, and while the whole rest of the team is at Baron.
Yeah. It just it shows you that it shows me two things. One, Dokla's inexperienced. He doesn't go for that 1v1 on High, which he probably should have, especially being Camille, who's an incredible duelist. While Rise is a good duelist, I mean, it's hard to beat out a Camille who can pretty much decide when she's going to or not going to take CC, and she's going to take whatever the shield is that is best against who she's fighting. I mean, that's really hard to beat. But, more on the other four of OpTic is that they know that they can get their job done, so that way they can have a fifth man who can be inexperienced. And maybe that's what they're doing. They're just trying to get a teaching moment there where they can say, hey, look, you were down on Drake, we were at Baron. There's no real downside to you going in, because if you go in on Rise and all of Golden Guardians goes down to handle that and get the Drake, then they get Baron for free on OpTic's side.
I think my main point is they were so far ahead. I think that he should have just gone up with that Baron and
You don't think he should have gone for the Drake?
I don't think the Drake really mattered. I mean, in the long run, it certainly didn't matter. I think that the game was so far out of hand that they could have just taken this Baron and pushed it and won a fight. I think they were pretty far ahead at that point. I mean, I guess you could possibly say that Golden Guardians, just super vanilla team fighting comp, could have caused a problem, but
I don't know. When you got Sedge and Tom, and then you got Tristana and Oriana who can sit behind them really well, and I feel like even a well executed fight from Golden Guardians isn't going to take those four down when those four are so far ahead. So I think there was no winning at that point for Golden Guardians. I think it was just, as you said, way too far ahead. So, yeah, it's a good game.
Yep.
For an OpTic fan like myself.
That's all I got.
All right. See you soon.